Welcome to No Password Required, a monthly conversation that introduces you to some of the top talent in the world of cybersecurity.
Hello and welcome to No Password Required, a podcast dedicated to exploring the minds and personalities that make up the field of cybersecurity. I'm your host, Ernie Ferraresso, and with me, as always, Jack Clabby, a cybersecurity attorney at Carlton Fields, PA in Tampa, and Pablo Torres, a senior cloud security engineer at Second Watch. On the podcast today, we will chat with Kayley Melton, the vice president of security awareness company Courseware and labs at KnowBe4. Kayley's journey into cybersecurity started as a childhood deep dive into the internet, where she searched for like-minded weirdos. These days, she celebrates her love for digital geekery by spending her work time on the research and development of cutting-edge and innovative training solutions. Kayley, we look forward to a great conversation. But first, hello to my co-hosts, Jack and Pablo. Gentlemen, good day.
Hey, good day, Ernie. Pablo, how are you?
Oh, it has been a great day. Jack, Ernie, I'm excited to talk about some hacking culture and talk about this article that we have queued up. Boys, where do you want to take it?
Yeah, I'm with you, Pablo. I could sense the stress in your voice and in Ernie's voice because Neopets.
Yes, I'm not going to lie.
How dare they? How dare they? That is a cultural icon right there. I mean, as both of you know, this goes back way back. I'm not trying to date anyone right now, but it goes back way back. There's people who played for 15 years on Neopets, and now they have to be worried about their information being compromised and out there being sold for pennies on the dollar. That sucks.
So they got to worry about their internet, their information, and their Neopet. I mean, that kind of stress. That kind of stress, you can't bear that on people. Come on.
All right. So the public reporting on the hack, we'll call it that, it was 69 million Neopet users. First off, that's astonishing.
That's exactly.
How many of those are like one person with 5,000 accounts? You know, I don't know.
Yeah.
But 69 million, and this is again public reporting. So it wasn't on the surface level not that bad. So it didn't look like it was anything. It was names, usernames, birthdays, zip codes. In many states that's not even personal information. But here's where it gets more challenging. So the company released a statement that said, we strongly recommend you change your Neopets password. And sometimes companies do that. Again, we don't know if that happened here, where if username and password pairs have been compromised. And Pablo, like you were saying, I mean, that's the health of the Neopet. If somebody's in there.
Yeah, if someone's in there, that's the health of the Neopet. I mean, are they going to feed the Neopet? Are they going to take care of it? Are they going to properly give it the nice TLC that it deserves?
Hold that Neopet hostage.
Is right. That is atrocious. What type of world are we living in today?
What kind of sick individual?
And
Neopet hostage?
I have to beg the question. I mean, let's say the proverbial cat enthusiast. We won't call him by the normal terminology. The proverbial cat enthusiast that has maybe 10 or 15 or 20 different accounts. What are they going to do? Are they going to change all their passwords on the 10 to 15 different accounts that they have?
Yeah. This is an example of, I guess it's not being held ransom per se on an individual account basis. At least that's the fear, obviously, is that an individual user's Neopet account that goes back 15 years of active use and the bad guy's keeping that one
active ransom. Use. That sounds like something that somebody needs to go get some treatment for.
I think it's not quite Tamagotchi level. I think Neopets, there's things you can automate. Whereas because I first saw this, I was thinking, how is Neopets different from Tamagotchi? And then I was reminded that they both are spelled and pronounced differently, and they're not the same.
Now that's classic right there. That's excellent.
A virtual.
Thanks for that. Right.
But I think the bad guy's MO here was he took the entire set, all the personal information, and was selling it for four Bitcoins. So I guess you can get everything for 4 Bitcoins. It wasn't an individual ransomware issue, but that's if a company like this has this incident, it's not so much losing the trust. That's not great, but you can come back from it. It's individual users. Let's say there's very little risk of, I don't know, but let's say there's very little risk that any of this personal information that was taken could be used to commit identity fraud. Okay. Like, usernames, email addresses, things like that aren't that big a deal. Typically, it's the lost access. If it was credential pairs to this particular, I keep wanting to say Tamagotchi, but it's Neopets. If you lose access to it, that's where the real sort of crisis hits in, because it's something that you really wanted that you can't use anymore. And that really stinks. It's like if I lost all my playlists, right, in Amazon Prime or something like that, right? I'm not saying that has ever happened, but if you lose like work product, that's different from losing your social security number.
Yeah. I see where you're coming from, and I understand that. I'm going to flip this on its head, and I think the ask of $94,000, and this is me putting my professional hat on. I'm looking at this, and I mean, when it comes to the personal identifiable information, you have tools out there. I'm not going to name them, but you have tools out there where you can input these email addresses, and then you can go ahead and scan the open internet across a whole bunch of different domains that could potentially use that email address. And if it shows that there's a confirmed match and it's a pair, that allows the attack surface area for whoever that target is with that specific email address to become that much more narrow, to where now the individual can just get some sort of brute force password, whatever they want to use.
Thing,
yeah, spray attack it, throw a dictionary at it, and then combine the personal identifiable information, such as the birthdays, the addresses, what else? The customer data, zip codes, yeah, all of that. Imagine if the hypothetical would be about myself. I'm not going to do a hypothetical about someone else, but imagine myself personally using a password where I'm involving not only my zip code, but I'm also involving my birthday. I'm involving my Neopets name, and it all just, it's something that allows me to remember my access. But then you have my email, you have my password. Maybe I use that password in other locations. It's my bank password. It's my 401k password. It's part of my insurance and my home mortgage like password. Like that just becomes havoc. And it's easy to do. I'm not saying that it's something difficult. I mean, it's open source intelligence. You can find the domains, and then from there you find the appropriate tools. You run a Kali Linux distribute or a Kali Linux box, and once you spin that up, I mean, the sky's the limit.
Yeah, the one thing I think was interesting as I was reading the article, you also got, if you so desired, for the low price of 4 Bitcoin, you get all access basically to the Neopets, their source code and some of their databases. So, I don't know at this point, but that in there it was saying that also let you to go in and say, if you were a Neopet user, I don't know if 94 grand is worth it, but you could go in there and basically unlock all your Neopets capabilities. And if there's anything on there, purchasing any upgrades and all that, you could do that.
Oh yeah, that sounds totally doable. I mean, as a way to monetize being a nefarious actor, and again, I'm speaking hypothetically here, but being a nefarious actor, they're going to take that source code. If they have any sort of PCI information in there, and they can redirect all the payment from the cards to a rogue destination, cool. You're just getting paid nonstop. If you can sell those upgrades and whatever on these accounts for, let's say, 50% markdowns, and you put them on eBay, get paid in gift cards, and go ahead and just like do your thing. All right, man, you just made a killing because you didn't have to pay for any of this. Go ahead.
Because the other part is interesting is that these I guess it's TarTarX, they just went and posted it right for sale. They didn't even go back to the Neopets and say, hey, listen, I'll give this back to you. They just hung it up they just hung a shingle out and said, hey, swing by and pick up your Neopets for, like I said, only 4 Bitcoin, 94 grand in today's prices.
Yeah, they didn't seek to, or at least there was no public reporting on them seeking to hold any individual accounts hostage. It was really just, just bad guys loot a place and then fence it immediately.
Yeah, exactly. They had to find a fence for this thing, and
without realizing that they were holding something that may have had sentimental value, one way or the other. So I can't think of another one that kind of aligns like this, but I think it does indicate that it's not always the data you have; it's also what the data you have allows you to access. And here, there's no indication it was credit card numbers. There was no indication it was social security numbers, any kind of payment card stuff. It may be, based on sort of the company's statement, it may have been username and password pairs to access these accounts. And so we've seen some, compromises of of a retail company's rewards card system, right? Like there's really not much in a rewards card system, but if you gain access to the password for the reward card systems, like Pablo, you were saying, and people reuse passwords, suddenly, a database of 60, however many million, 69 million is pretty darn useful, because within that 69 million, there's going to be some people, if it does include password and credential pairs, it's going to be useful in a churning attack or some other kind of attack against another target.
Yeah. So I guess the bottom line on this is, like they said, don't reuse your password.
Don't reuse your password.
Don't reuse your password and use a password manager.
Jack, to your statement, think about the conversion rate when we're talking about 69 million different user credentials, and if we're talking about a very basic standard 2% conversion rate, we're looking at 1.38 million different users' credentials that could potentially be accessed. That's 1.3 million individuals that could be compromised outside of the Neopet world.
Yeah,
that sucks.
Yeah. Well, that's why I always use elaborate passwords from the world of Disney's Tarzan.
And there you go.
Nobody really saw that movie, so
I'm
gonna. That's no one. Can you name a character other than Tarzan?
I'm gonna go change your passwords for you right now.
I was gonna say, isn't Jane in there?
Oh,
there's got to be
no,
a Jane,
changing
right?
it quickly. Changing it quickly.
That's it, Jack.
It's gonna be the Aristocats now. This is my next.
DEFCON 5. Go change your passwords.
Yes. Okay, and that being said, we're going to take a quick break. And when we return, we're going to talk to Kayley about the Craigslist ad that changed her life.
Looking for more no password required content? Follow us on Twitter, Instagram, Facebook, and LinkedIn at No Password Pod.
Welcome back. Our guest is Kayley Melton, the Vice President of Security Awareness Company Courseware and Labs at KnowBe4. Kayley, welcome to No Password Required.
Thank you. I'm happy to be here.
So tell me a little bit about what the Security Awareness Company Courseware, what is that? What does it do? And labs, I mean, I'm thinking, do you wear like a lab coat and, that type of thing walking around the office, or?
No, it's not that cool, unfortunately, but it is still pretty cool, and a mouthful. Basically, what happened, I worked with the Security Awareness Company, founded by Win Schwartau, for several years.
Friend of the show, by the way. Friend of the show.
Yes. Yeah. And we were able to grow the Security Awareness Company to the point that KnowBe4 became interested in acquiring us. So basically, SAC is the short way of saying Security Awareness Company. SAC Courseware and Labs is our little division within KnowBe4 as a whole post-acquisition. And we create the content for our training platform. Courses, newsletters, videos, any type of training that you can imagine, we've probably made it and uploaded it into the KnowBe4 training platform. And the labs part is definitely the most exciting part, but unfortunately it's a bit like Fight Club and I can't really talk about it. But basically we do all the innovative experimenting and pilot products and things like that.
So like KnowBe4 is, I mean, it's a major brand name. Everybody knows it in the cybersecurity community. And I think a lot of folks would want to know how to work there, but it sounds like your path was work for another company that got on their radar.
Yeah.
How did you come to, like, tell us a little bit about your career path, how you came to SAC, kind of how you got interested in this stuff?
Yeah. So in middle school, all the way back in middle school, my uncle was getting his certification. I don't remember exactly what it was, but he wanted to start a local ISP back in the DSL days and a computer repair business. And I helped him out actually in getting that certification by taking some of the networking courses for him.
Oh, wow. That's awesome.
Yeah.
How did he do on those courses?
Yeah, I was going to say, yeah, pretty well, I guess.
He passed.
That's awesome.
He passed. Yeah, and from there, we were both kind of getting into the computer stuff together, I guess you could say. He was the first one to share an exe that I could send to my friends and open their disk drive on their computer and pop up funny messages and things like that. So yeah, that's kind of where my love of computers and being a total geek came from. Yeah, and then in high school, I kept just playing with them because computers were just, I don't know, it was new and so much fun. It was a great escape from life as well. Easy to find other weirdos like me, which wasn't so easy growing up in the Appalachian Mountains to find weirdos like me. So in high school, I tested out of my typing class my first day as a freshman.
That's
and
awesome.
I was going to say typing class. I remember that.
It was
Yep.
most important class I took in high school.
Yeah, I can
honestly, to this day.
And the thing was, I still remember it. I can't remember my typing teacher, but I can remember it was Jan has to go to the city lake. And if you got a certain number on that one, that was how you passed out of it. And so by God, I could crank that thing out. I don't know how many words, but I just remember Jan has to go to the city lake.
So what do they do, Kayley? What do they do? All right, so you test out of that. What do they do with you?
So from there, I elected to go into an A+ class. So just kind of following that networking vein. I was put into a class with a lot of juniors. It was kind of an advanced class, I guess, and was definitely one of the only women in the class. Also, definitely the only woman who took it the only woman who took it seriously. Okay. But unfortunately, because my computer teacher was sexist, he never learned my real name. He never took me seriously. He never let me go with the guys to set up networks in classrooms and set up tech for movies and things like that. Yeah, the guys would goof off and share answers on their quizzes, and I was over here like telling them to hush so I could focus.
Yeah.
And yeah, even still, I was never able to get his respect. And honestly, that was really discouraging. I kind of just left it and kept kind of learning programming through making websites, playing around with design programs, that kind of thing. So yeah, I went to college. Sorry, go ahead.
I was going to say, dang, you showed him though, didn't you?
Yeah. Right.
I mean, yeah, listen, you don't get to be the vice president of anything just by slacking. So man, you really good. That's right, man.
He might be listening now, but he probably can't get the headphones to work.
That's exactly correct. Exactly.
Exactly.
Yeah. Sticking it to the man. That's what I like to hear.
Exactly. Literally.
Yeah.
Do you continue on like a networking path then when you leave high school? What do you do next?
No, so I was the first person in my family to go to college, and no one encouraged me to go to college in my family. The people in school did for sure. But I decided to go to a college several hours away, a self-described bougie college. And being from the Appalachian Mountains, generational poverty, all sorts of things that we associate with that area are true in a lot of ways. I was just a fish out of water. It was such a shock to see what life was like outside of my little bubble. And I really struggled to find my footing, to even know what careers I could take after college, what classes I might need to take to get to those careers. So I kind of just decided to major in what I was interested in. And that happened to be fine art. I'm a classically trained painter, and I,
in addition to all the other stuff, you're a classically trained painter. That's pretty cool.
Yeah, classically trained oil painter.
That was your aunt. You had to take some painting classes for her business.
Right.
That's
Exactly.
awesome. That was happening at the same time that all this is happening. You're also painting?
Yeah.
Oh,
Yeah.
cool.
Yeah. And I still do. But after college, so I majored in fine art, got a double minor in sociology and religion, and none of those things are marketable whatsoever, at least not right out of college with only a bachelor's degree. So I fell back on the geekery that I indulged in middle school and high school, and used my skills in programming websites, which I'd done freelance jobs and things like that. But yeah, the skills programming websites and using design programs for graphic design in order to get a job.
So is there, you see any, I guess crossover between your art, background and interest and your work in technology? I mean, that, because it's not as unusual as you would think that there's folks with that blending between the technical and the artistic. And I'm interested to hear your thoughts on it.
Yeah, I think, I don't know. I feel like art feels like this far away thing. I know when I show people drawings and things, they're like, oh, I wish I could draw. I wish I could make art. But art really isn't that hard. You just have to do it. And keep doing it and keep practicing it. But it banks on this creativity that helps fuel the art.
Mm-hmm.
And I believe that my creativity has been key to doing my job well at any point in my career. Sometimes, of course, it's directly related. I started with the security awareness company doing a lot of graphic design, layouts, putting courses together, things like that. But over time, it's just spending so much time fostering and fueling your creativity helps you do critical thinking better. And you can come up with out of the box ways to approach different topics or concepts or solutions that maybe you wouldn't get to if you didn't have that injection of creativity into it.
We heard that at some point there's a story about a Craigslist ad. Can you share that with us? Maybe start with why you were looking around there in the first place, where this kind of fits in.
Yeah, absolutely. So after college, as I said, not many marketable skills for entry-level positions. I had an AmeriCorps job for a year. It paid less than minimum wage, and I was doing layouts and things like that. But ultimately, it wasn't what I thought it was going to be, and it wasn't what I wanted to do. So I moved to Nashville, and I just kept applying different places, all sorts of different jobs, things that I wanted to do. I hadn't gotten down into like barista at Starbucks yet, but I was getting there. And I don't know, at some point I was like, maybe I should check Craigslist, because, they post jobs and stuff there. Of course, knowing, it's Craigslist, the connotation of that. And I came across this ad for a job that seemed honestly too good to be true. It was really snarky. The listing itself was probably 2 or 3 pages long. And it sounded like it was a job that matched the skills I had perfectly. And if the company was anything like this irreverent, in-your-face ad, then I felt like it would be something I wanted to explore. So I contacted them, sent in all my job application stuff, and received a call I think it was the same day. And they said they were interested in interviewing me. Here's the address for our house, and come at this time.
It sounds good, right?
Yeah.
Better than a storage unit, not as good as an office building. Somewhere right
this is
in
true.
the middle.
Yeah.
Exactly. And I didn't I didn't really think about it clearly. Maybe I would have taken someone with me at least to sit in the car. But yeah, I pulled up to this place, walked up to the door, knocked, and they let me in. And it was Win Schwartz's house.
Yeah, I wouldn't have gone in. No one win that. Yeah, you know, that's
Exactly.
I would have seen that.
Exactly.
That's awesome.
Yeah. My first interview question, although I didn't realize it, was, how do you want coffee and how do you like it? And I said, yes, black. And he said, that's the right answer. So yeah.
Is Craigslist still a way that you that now SAC and KnowBe4 are finding talent like yourself, or have you guys moved on to other? Okay.
No, definitely not. We did, though, in the early days of SAC, before we were acquired by KnowBe4, we did use Craigslist to get more people. And interestingly, it kept working. Like the people that we hired along the way, almost all of them are still with me now.
Well, I wonder if it's that that underground culture that kind of runs underneath there. You know, that's the I'll call it there's the hidden job market, and then there's the hidden job market. And maybe that's maybe that's it. So,
yeah, maybe.
Yeah.
Right, so in your current role now with what you do, I know you can't tell us too much about the nuts and bolts of how it happens, but what for you is the most fulfilling part of your current role?
I think the most fulfilling part is seeing my division, like the individual people that make up my division, flourish. It's so rewarding to help them see their strengths and their talents that maybe they didn't realize they had or didn't have as much confidence in, and help them grow those, evolve them, and become leaders in their own right, get promotions, take on new responsibilities. That's honestly the most rewarding part. It's also just nice to work for a company that I know is doing something good and necessary, that the work we do is very important. That definitely helps.
On the client side, I mean, do you get exposure to how the clients interact with the courseware, and then, kind of what do the best clients sort of have in common from your perspective?
Yeah, so I don't get as much interface with clients as I did before we were acquired. Okay. But I do still get to interact with clients in things like focus groups or feedback, support tickets, customizations to courses, things like that. In my opinion, the best clients are open-minded, and they have faith that their users can be trained to be different, that their behaviors can change. There's this, what would I call it? There's this attitude in our industry that users are basically like naughty children who can never be tamed.
That's totally true. That's exactly. Stop them from touching things.
Yeah, exactly. With their like jammy hands. Yeah. And I totally understand where that comes from, but I think it's counterintuitive, because it's not really that users are users. Users are just humans. And it's not like most infosec professionals really have the best security awareness practices anyway, unless they're uber paranoid. It's just human mistakes. It's human to get busy and to click on a link at a glance on your phone when you're traveling. It's human to want to help someone whose arms are full and is trying to come in the door without a badge. Yeah. And I think that, so all that to say, the best clients understand that humanity and are willing to work with it rather than, oh, they're just users.
We had a similar one of our previous guests, Rachel Toback. That was she believes that same thing, and it's working to shift the narrative from people are the weakest link to people are your first line of defense. And that's sort of, I think, you're talking that same thing is how do you, companies that believe in empowering their people rather than, expecting them to do dumb things. It's more like, hey, they've got to do their job. They're going to be busy. How do you give them the right tools to be safe and such? That's
yeah, exactly. And I think a good program, like a security awareness program, also makes people understand that the things they're learning apply to their personal lives as well. Because if they're able to connect it into something that's beneficial for them and for their family and loved ones, then it becomes second nature. It's not something you have to learn for the good of the company. It's more personal. It's more useful to everyday life.
Kayley, I know you're out in the community and pretty well known, but can you tell us a little bit about your first microphone in hand sort of speaking engagement?
Yes. So I've given a lot of webinars and talks and things like that, but my first, as you say, microphone in hand speaking engagement was just this past April at K4Con. And I was doing a dual talk with my colleague, Anna Collard, who also works for KnowBe4. And we were talking about how to make your training engaging, like tactics to make your training engaging and effective. That morning I woke up and felt a little odd. I'd had, a couple drinks, nothing crazy. So I thought maybe I'm just really sensitive to it. The day went on and I discovered I had food poisoning from the seafood in the hotel.
Oh no. Oh no.
The old bad clams. They always come back. That's how it is.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Yeah. So I was dealing with that, trying to be present at the conference, trying not to spew all over everyone at the same time. And it was down to maybe an hour before my speaking slot. And finally I was able to not look like a sweaty white pasty mess, like be present and a person. But yeah, luckily it cleared up that hour before, and Anna and I went on the stage and it went great. We convinced the DJ who was playing a little bit of music between the speaking sessions to play Canned Heat by Jamiroquai for our intro music.
That's awesome.
And yeah, it went amazing. There at the end during the audience Q&A, we had said one sentence about a new feature that KnowBe4 had. And apparently this was a sore topic for the people in the audience. Okay. It was barely related to what my talk was about. And it was just question after angry question, it doesn't work right. It doesn't work this way. Why doesn't it work? And at a certain point, I just had to be like, hey, can we just keep the questions to the scope of my talk, please?
This isn't a help desk session.
Yeah. Right, exactly.
There's an agenda with specific topics.
You're going to need to go to the website. Please post your comments there.
Exactly.
Our tech team will be taking these on outside.
The vending machine in the lobby outside doesn't have enough Snickers bars.
Exactly.
Please address that.
Yes.
Exactly.
That's the problem with unvetted questions like that. You're thinking really, it's not a town hall per se, but it almost is like that sometimes at a big conference. That's part of the excitement and almost like the danger of doing something.
You never know what you're going to get.
Yeah. I mean, there were a lot of great questions, but I don't know. There was something about that new feature, which was in a beta to begin with. So it wasn't fully fleshed out anyway.
It's funny how they catch on to that and they just write. And then it was
exactly.
Yeah. And that's another thing.
Exactly.
And then there's another thing. And,
they started talking over each other. That's and right. It was crazy.
It builds to a riot. It's just never.
That's a great the takeaway from things like that is always that's awesome engagement from customers that they care, and then two, they're asking because they obviously trust that you're going to do something about it, and that's two pretty cool things, and it beats the apathy problem.
Yeah,
what you're doing is killing it, I guess.
That's true. Yeah. I mean, I guess it's And if we follow that, even the next, if it breaks out into a full blown riot, you have the best customers in the world. I think that's exactly correct. If they are that passionate,
that's the bar.
if they are that passionate that they're willing to take it to that level.
I mean, speaking of rabid fan bases, I want to ask a Star Wars question.
Oh, okay.
I believe you've described yourself as Han Solo, like, outside of intergalactic smuggling. How are you similar to Han Solo?
Yeah, so I thought about this a bit, and I decided it was Han, because Han was used to being a lone wolf, and that's kind of how I started into adulthood. I was a lone wolf. He didn't exactly have good people skills. He had a really rough exterior and not exactly the greatest attitude. And he built such a strong wall between himself and others that he couldn't even accept love and love in return until, the pivotal moment, like, I know.
That's right.
So I felt like his character arc matches how my life has gone, because I didn't let people in, and even though I'm very smiley and giggly now, I wasn't always, the happiest person, a little touchy. And it was ultimately by finding community, finding something that I was passionate about, and learning that being loved and loving is not dangerous.
So with Han Solo and you, did you shoot first?
Clearly.
Of course. That's right. All right.
Come on.
I thought you were going to do a scruffy looking Nerf herder.
Who's
right?
Scruffy looking. That's right.
So if that's who's if you're Han Solo, who's Chewbacca?
Yeah.
Your best bud traveling through the universe in the Millennium Falcon.
Yeah. I know that I should probably say this person is technically Leia, but I would say my husband is my Chewbacca.
It's okay.
He's my ride or die,
All right. Yeah.
Kayley, what do you have going on now? Do you have any projects that are upcoming that you're excited about?
Yeah. So speaking of Win Shortau, I am illustrating a book with him. I'm not sure when it's going to come out, hopefully by the end of the year, but it is how would I say this? He told me to be mysterious if I mentioned it. So early in the 90s, he wrote the book InfoWar, after testifying to Congress that information warfare would be a thing. Imagine that, 2022. Even though he was laughed out of the room at that time. So he wrote InfoWar about that, about information warfare and how it was going to be a thing. And so now the book that he's writing is MetaWar.
That's awesome.
Yeah, that's interesting.
And you're illustrating it?
Yes.
Oh, that's cool.
Yeah. I illustrated a book with him a few years ago called Analog Network Security, and it was basically his magnum opus. It was coming out of time-based security that he had established early on, and he was using real math to prove his theory about time-based security.
So how do you illustrate math?
Yeah, it was very interesting. It was probably the scariest and most difficult project I had taken on, at least at that point. It's still pretty far up there for me.
Yeah.
Our goal was to create a book that was unlike any other information security book out there. And he really wanted it to be steampunk themed. I tried to convince him otherwise, but I think it turned out okay. And the thought process behind the layout of the book, each page has like the body of text, but then there's a sidebar on every page where we added like extra facts or win commentary, because as you guys know, he has an awful lot to say and a very particular way of saying it. So I wanted to preserve some of that, and I put that in the side. And I just wanted it to draw the reader in, to make it a book about a really heady, dry topic, but make you want to keep flipping through it anyway.
Cool.
And yeah, I think we were able to accomplish that. Now, whatever Meta War ends up being, I don't think that it's going to be quite as illustrated as that one was.
I like the high concept though.
Yeah.
I like, it's going to be analog network security, but steampunk. This is
That's
going to be Meta War, but entirely underwater in submarines.
That's right.
Submarine aesthetic.
Making notes.
It's-
Submarine
Exactly.
aesthetic.
But everyone lives in the tops of trees. All right, well, all right. Well, thank you, Kayley. We're going to take a short break. And when we return, we're going to put you through Ernie's lifestyle polygraph. So everybody stay with us.
You're listening to the No Password Required podcast. We cover cybersecurity and a lot of other stuff.
Okay, welcome back. Kayley, are you ready for the lifestyle polygraph? Just so
I'm
you
ready.
know, yes, you say you're ready, but are you ready? Because the lifestyle polygraph, is a series of questions. These questions we use to probe the inner workings and minds of our guests on the show. In national security circles, the lifestyle polygraph is used to determine one's eligibility for access to the nation's secrets. But here, we're going to use this so that we can access some of your greatest secrets. And so here we go. We're going to start here. A very difficult question.
Okay.
Here it is. You recently finished watching all of the Star Trek movies in order. What did you learn from that experience?
I learned Mr. Spock does not like punk music.
Okay.
Data,
Really?
yes. Data should never be underestimated in matters of Android hookups.
I mean, that, you see, that in my mind, that'd be like you would think, right? Of course. I mean,
Yeah.
who else to speak clearly about Android to Android relationships?
And finally, that my partner has a very small window of tolerance for that much Star Trek in one go.
What was the time frame that this, are we talking like months or a shorter
No,
period?
like a
Whoa.
week.
Wow.
Yeah, you're talking. Yeah, I mean, you're talking
Wow.
like Jim Kirk and the with the bald lady, from start one, and then all the way to
All the way.
Captain Picard traveling through time with the new guys, or the
Yes.
yeah.
Yeah, the only Star Trek series that I haven't watched is Enterprise, the Scott Bakula series. So I didn't watch that movie either. There's an Enterprise movie, but yeah.
Oh, so the new one, did you include the new ones, like the Chris Pine ones?
Yeah,
Oh,
yeah.
cool. Okay.
yeah. I love those movies
Those are
too.
cool too.
So
Oh, that's awesome.
it's going to kind of go off track here a bit, but I mean, it just seems like they cheated, right? What did meaning we have the whole, William Shatner, Captain Picard, and then what do? Well, we're just going to snap our fingers and erase that whole timeline and then start all over again like it never happened. I mean, is that
Right.
I mean, is that what
Yeah.
happened?
I mean, sort of. Yeah.
Yeah.
They had Leonard Nimoy in the first one, I
Yeah.
believe. So they tried to make
Yeah, because
it
wasn't
match.
he? And didn't he come back in time? Wasn't that what it was?
Yeah.
He came back in time to visit with himself and says,
Spo-
"Hey."
spoiler alert too here.
Oh yeah,
Right.
sorry,
Right,
I
yeah.
got to say that.
Spoiler
Right.
alert here.
Yeah.
Yeah. But ultimately, I think it was just a little bit of a cop out, so they could do totally
Yeah.
new stuff.
I got to be honest with you. When I see time travel in movies, unless the movie is about time travel's like that's like the get out of jail free card for the for plot holes. Well, we time traveled.
Exactly.
It was an infinity stone.
That's
that
right.
let me do it.
That's exactly correct.
I went back and watched original Wrath of Khan maybe a month ago. It
Oh.
popped up on a streaming service again for free. And so I've been revisiting them, but not in order, Kayley. And Wrath of Khan, I was watching it with two middle school children. And there is the scene where they put the bug in.
Oh,
the
yeah,
ear,
yeah.
And I had forgotten how intense that was, because you think of Star Trek as being like everyone can consume it, but that scene is so intense. There's some really intense scenes.
It's pretty freaky. Yeah.
Yeah. Not necessarily violent, but very intense. So, but it's a heck of a good movie.
But I think
it's great.
maybe the most intense scene is when Captain Kirk is on the planet and Ricardo Montalban as Khan is telling him what his plan is, and he's getting ready to sail away, and Kirk just looks up and got that. That's the best. That is one of the most intense scenes out there. You can just feel it. You can just
yeah, absolutely.
Speaking of intensity and passion, we're going on to our next question. Outside of your career, what are you most passionate about?
I am most passionate about making art. I still do that a lot. I also play bass, and I've been loving doing that as well. And practicing compassion, I would say.
When you say bass, like stand-up bass or guitar bass?
So I started guitar bass, electric.
Yeah.
I recently found they have ukulele basses, and it's not quite
really.
It's not quite what it sounds like. Like, it's not, a ukulele is tuned slightly different, or the strings are in a different order. So it's not an actual ukulele. It's just called that because it's really small. And it has these really thick black strings. They're like rubber and really floppy. But
Cool.
Somehow this tiny bass that's probably like 2.5, 3 feet long, it has the sound of an upright. It's really fascinating. I've been loving learning to play it.
Is it 4 strings with the same fingering as oh, that's really cool.
Yeah, it's got less frets because it's shorter, but yeah, everything else is exactly the same.
It's kind of like me in my new life, my less stressed life. I have less frets. I don't fret about anything. It's my dad joke for the day. Yeah,
that's all. Do you play just on your own? Do you play with tracks, or do you play with friends? How do you like to enjoy music?
My husband and I play a lot of music together, and we're trying to make a quote unquote family band. We don't have kids or anything, but we have best friends who play music, and we've been trying to convince them to join our family band.
Oh,
you know what I find helps? Get yourself a van or an old school bus.
Yes.
It worked for the Partridge Family. I mean, I can't.
That's right.
So
I've always wanted a VW bus. So
it's perfect.
Perfect.
Yeah.
My parents owned one, I think, for 1 year, where they were going from New Jersey to Mississippi, and they lived there for a year, and they went back, and they only owned it for 1 year of their long lives. And yet they talk about it as if it was something that they owned for 30 years.
It just impacts. It's amazing.
Van.
Yeah.
This van. And there are pictures of it around the house. Like it was, they owned it for 11 months. It's something about that vehicle that just captured the imagination. Man, to this generations. Day, I would trade my Honda Odyssey for one in a heartbeat. I would.
And you know what's it's sad, Jack. What's really sad is the functionality of the Odyssey is similar to that of that VW van. But you're right. It still doesn't have the same.
The best use of interior space available. Yeah, I'm a well-known van, Kayley. This is to me talking about minivans is to you playing the bass. So just
I
to give
see.
you a sense of
that's an interesting.
Where my head's at.
That's an interesting thing.
Hey, listen, the minivan. It's like driving around in your living room. It's just hop on.
I don't even want to get where I'm going. I'm so comfortable.
That's right. That's right. Like you just go out to your driveway and sit in it sometimes. Hey.
All right. Is there another question?
There are.
Maybe we can get off all this
Yeah.
this van content, Ernie.
Hey, listen. You have to take time
Which is
to
your
talk
favorite van of the following vans?
Yeah, that's right. Is it the Econo line? The Toyota Suite? No.
This is what I was waiting for this whole time was van question.
Van talk.
So, yeah.
That's going to be a whole spinoff, a whole series, a whole new series, Van Talk. Okay. Meanwhile, back at the ranch, here we are. How do you define art? How do you define art?
I could be really like pretentious artist and say art is undefinable.
Oh, excellent. It's perfect. It's wonderful.
But in my opinion, what I think art is, art evokes feeling and conveys these heady, it has the potential to convey these heady ideas or to point out social injustice or philosophical issues, anything like that, and just kind of offer it up for the viewer to interpret however they want. It's the evocation of it that I think really makes something art. Does it evoke a feeling? Even if the feeling is disgust, it still evoked something.
As a classically trained artist, like if you encounter, like stuff that maybe isn't as well done, do you pick up on it? You think more? Because I get, as somebody who's not classically trained, I can sometimes tell what's good and what's not, but you have extra levels, obviously, of training. Can you still enjoy like, a good ad in a magazine or, something that's more popular? Or do you feel like you're, like once you've tasted the fine wines, you can't go back to Bud Light? Like, can you still, how does that impact you're making your way through the world of art?
Yeah, it definitely has an impact. I'd like to say that it didn't, but it doesn't, but it does for sure. I can very much tell when someone is a beginner artist or a student artist who thinks very highly of themselves, as many art students do.
Exactly, that never happens.
Yeah, I can tell. There's just something about the quality of lines and the subject matter and the attitude that make it very obvious. Yeah, I would say I can tell, but it doesn't stop me from enjoying regular everyday things. I mean, I'm not a huge fan of ads and commercials in general, but yeah, I know what you're saying. It definitely doesn't hurt. And art, being an artist, you can take inspiration from anywhere. And so those things are also just fuel for inspiration.
And on the subject of art and artists, we have a two-part question.
I'm ready.
This is from one of the 20th century's greatest artists. Is Bob Ross an artist? And are you the Bob Ross of cybersecurity?
Wow. Okay. So I believe Bob Ross is absolutely an artist. I think it's incredible that he was able to paint so many landscapes in so many different ways, so quickly as well. A lot of that stuff he just put on the canvas, even when he was creating the sample painting that he was going to go off of before the episode. It was still things that he had taken in from observing and loving nature and was able to artistically put that onto the canvas. Just because he did it so often and so many repetitions of some of the same paintings, I don't think that matters. I mean, some of the great artists, like, of course, they all leave my brain, like Monet, he would paint the same thing, the same exact scene over and over and over and over again. All artists do that. People who can't paint hands until they can paint hands. So yeah, I think he was absolutely an artist.
Yeah, and that happy little tree right over there. Put a little log cabin over there.
Exactly.
Yeah. When you use that fan brush.
Yeah,
I remember doing that. I can remember you'd be just scrolling through the channels, and then all of a sudden there you would be all right, hey, and then we're going to go over here and the nice, lovely little mountain over here. We use the edge of that paint roller right on there. And,
Yeah.
And then next thing you know, 30 minutes have gone by and you just feel so much better.
Yeah.
Kaylee,
You're like hypnopatized
That's right.
into this. Yeah.
are you still painting, Kayley? And if so, what kind of things are you painting?
Yeah. I have, in the last couple of years, I've switched to largely digital painting.
Cool.
Just for the ease of having stuff, because oil painting is a really intensive process. You have to have the right filtration or airflow, ventilation, that's the word I'm looking for. You have to have the right ventilation because the paint thinner is really like, if you're in a closed room, you'll start feeling kind of loopy.
That's why I used to like making plastic models, the glue, right?
Yes, exactly. Yes.
Cheaper than going to the bar. You know?
That's right, exactly. And you get something out of it aside from some chicken wings.
Yeah. So I do a lot of digital painting now. A lot of people say they can't tell the difference when I tell them I did it digitally. They're like, "How did you make that happen?" But yeah.
Is this software? Do you have it's like a painting software and then that simulates brushes, or is it?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah,
Cool.
I use my iPad and the app Procreate most of the time.
Cool.
Yeah.
I'm going to ask this question because you're talking about digital art, and we can't have a discussion unless we bring up some sort of crypto-like thing. And so NFTs, how does that? I mean, you're probably like, just because I do digital art doesn't mean I have NFTs on the brain. But I mean, is that something? Because I still don't understand that.
I don't know if anyone truly understands it.
It's good to know. Good. I guess I'm in good.
I feel like it's a little bit like quantum physics. If you say you fully understand it, do you?
Do you really?
Yeah. I've in passing considered trying it because free money, right?
Yeah.
But yeah, I haven't pursued anything like that.
Yeah, like I don't know either. It's one of those things. I'm like, gee, maybe I'll just create an NFT of this PowerPoint presentation I did for the office. Who knows? Yeah, I mean, look, Pablo's on the back of his screen. He's got this grand PowerPoint slide. You turn that into an NFT. Next thing you know, boom. Well, Pablo's a millionaire, and off he goes.
Yeah,
but
it can happen.
Exactly. Who knows? All right, here we are. Our fifth and final question. Early in our discussions, you mentioned that you went to a quote bougie university. What is the most bougie thing that you became involved with that really resonated with you?
Resonated positively?
We'll just leave it at resonated.
Okay. All right. So the first thing that comes to mind, the first few days that we were there were freshman orientation. And we were divided into little groups based on what we thought we might major in. Looking back, I think I also got a bougier group than others because art. But there was this day in particular, we were going to a garden party at the president's house. And that's already pretty bougie.
Yeah,
I was going to say, yeah. Most people just go to a party, let alone a garden party,
right?
And then at the president's house, forget it.
I know. So on the way there, we were riding with, I can't remember what they called them, but they were basically juniors or seniors that were assigned to these groups to kind of mentor the new freshmen. So I was kind of just sitting and witnessing this conversation, driving in this woman's car on the way to this garden party. And the topic of conversation was how this woman's brother-in-law had started putting gloves at gas station tanks so that no one had to touch the pump. And she didn't understand how anyone ever pumped gas with their bare hands.
That's awesome. That's awesome.
That just reminded me of this Seinfeld where George is eating the candy bar with the how do you eat it? With your hands? How do you pump the gas? With your hands?
Exactly.
That's amazing.
Exactly.
No, I use the power of my mind to move it. That's how we do it these down. Yeah.
Exactly. Yeah, that was like day 2 or 3. And I was like, oh no, what have I gotten myself into?
This isn't a thing that people should be talking about. This
No,
isn't a
I
topic.
was raised on a farm.
It's if you could only know where these hands have been.
Exactly.
You almost just want to like, what's the most ridiculous thing then you can say next? You should exactly have said that. Yeah. I've given birth to a live calf, you know?
But you have to put your hand on their shoulder when you do that.
Deep.
Yeah, exactly. You reach over and you pat them on the
to
shoulder.
here.
Yeah.
Yeah, your point.
Well, your hair, there's
Very
a lot of place.
lovely. You got something there. Hold on.
That's awesome.
Well, Kayley, thank you for joining us. That brings us to the end of our conversation. That said, if our listeners would like to connect with you, how can they do that?
You can find me on LinkedIn, easy search. I'm also on Twitter, _KMELT, Kmelt. And if anyone is interested in the art I do, I also have an Instagram that is Kmelt, KMELT.art.
All right. Well, thanks very much for joining us.
Thank you.
Okay, they should do K Before Con should do Battle of Bands.
Yes.
Like I said, after, you could probably get like 3 or 4 bands to play like a song or two.
Yeah, totally.
Be pretty cool. You've already got the event space, just like bring the amps. You can do something.
Yeah. Yeah. There's this running joke in my division. There's so many people in the SAC division who are musicians, but there's an odd number of bassists. So we would have this band with like 4 or 5 bassists.
That's awesome.
Listen, if you could, that's something right there.
The low ends.
Yeah.
The bottom ends, or something you gotta go with. Rumble could be the name of the band.
That's
Exactly.
awesome.
It's awesome. What is it? It's because whatever. That's cool. That's like an interesting statistical project to figure out why bassists are attracted to that life, or that life attracts bassist, or whatever. That's
Yeah.
On the other hand, it's good to know for local bands, they have a place they can go get bassists.
That's true.
Awesome.
To fill the
Put it
bass
on
gap.
Craigslist.
Yeah.
Craigslist. Nice.
Thank you, Kayley.
All right. That brings us to the end of the program. Thank you for joining us. First and foremost, I have to thank my co-hosts, Jack Clabby and Pablo Torres. I have to say thank you to our guest, Kayley Melton. She's an artist who rose up through adversity to become one of the top players in the cybersecurity field. Remember, rate, review, and subscribe to No Password Required Podcast. You can find us on social media at No Password Pod, and send your comments and questions to info@nopasswordpodcast.com. And if you'd like some show swag, just ask and we'll hook you up. I'm Ernie Ferreso. Thank you for listening, and we'll talk again soon.
Thank you for listening to the No Password Required podcast. The show is produced by Cyber Florida. A special thanks goes out to our friends at Carlton Fields and Second Watch. If you would like to learn more about the show, visit our website at cyberflorida.org/pod. And if you still need more show content, check out our social media at No Password Pod.